The Intrepid's warning systems blared continuously as radiation levels climbed. Commander Alex Morgan ordered all non-essential crew members to the ship's core, where shielding was strongest. On the bridge, those who remained worked with grim determination, their faces lit by the red emergency lights. "Hull temperature rising," reported the engineering officer. "Shields at 30% and dropping." Alex nodded, his eyes fixed on the main screen showing their slow progress away from the dying star. "Keep pushing. Every mile counts." Behind them, the star had grown visibly larger and more unstable. Its surface boiled with massive flares that reached out like fiery tentacles. Ahead, the rest of the human and luminary fleet continued to move in their carefully arranged formation, each ship playing its part in the massive rescue operation. "Incoming transmission from Ambassador Lux," Lisa called from her station. The main screen changed to show the luminary leader. Even through the translator, the concern in Lux's voice was clear. "Your ship is taking too much damage, Commander Morgan. We cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves." Alex leaned forward. "With all respect, Ambassador, you didn't ask. We offered. The Intrepid will hold position as long as necessary." After the transmission ended, Alex's first officer spoke quietly. "Sir, at our current rate, we have maybe 12 hours before shields fail completely. Then we have 12 hours to figure out our next move," Alex replied. The solution came from an unexpected source. 2 hours later, 3 luminary ships broke formation and moved back toward the Intrepid. At first, Alex thought they were coming to help push, but instead they positioned themselves around the human vessel in a triangle formation. "Sir, I don't know how to describe it," said the science officer. "They're extending some kind of crystalline structure between their ships. They're forming a cage around us." Before Alex could respond, the luminary ships began to glow with intense blue light. The crystal structures connecting them lit up, and suddenly the Intrepid was bathed in the same blue glow. The warning alarms quieted one by one. "Radiation levels dropping," reported the science officer in amazement. "Shield strength increasing. They're protecting us, sir." For the next 4 days, the combined fleet pushed onward. The human ships strained their engines to the breaking point. The repaired luminary vessels glowed with the combined power of human and alien technology. At the current pace, they would reach the safe distance with just hours to spare before the star went supernova. On what they now called Day 25, Admiral Kelly requested a fleet-wide communication link. "As of 0600 hours, all luminary vessels have cleared the minimum safe distance," he announced, his voice showing the strain of the past weeks. "I am ordering all human ships to disengage from towing operations and proceed to maximum safe distance immediately." Alex looked at the 3 luminary ships still protecting the Intrepid. They hadn't moved despite the Admiral's order. "Ambassador," Alex called through the communication link, "your ships need to leave with the others. We'll be right behind you." "Wait," response came immediately. "We will not abandon those who did not abandon us." In the end, they compromised. The luminary ships remained with the Intrepid, but all 4 vessels increased speed toward the safe zone. They cleared the danger area with just under 3 hours remaining. The entire fleet, human and luminary, gathered at the designated safe distance. Every available viewer on every ship focused on the dying star. When it finally happened, there was no sound, only a brilliant flash of light that outshone everything else in the system. The shockwave reached them hours later, rocking the ships but causing no serious damage thanks to their distance. Where the star had once been, there was now a spreading nebula of gas and dust, beautiful, deadly, and a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. The mood across the fleet was a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. For the first time in weeks, people had time to process what had happened. Humanity had made first contact with an alien species and immediately launched the largest rescue operation in history. Against impossible odds, they had succeeded. 1 week after the supernova, the combined fleet began the journey to Earth's nearest colony world, New Horizon. The colony had sent word that they were preparing to welcome the luminary refugees while a permanent home was found for them. During the journey, more luminari were awakened from stasis. Cultural exchange began in earnest, with both species eager to learn from each other. The Luminari shared their biological technology, including medical advances that humans had never imagined. In return, humanity offered their understanding of propulsion systems and energy generation. On the Intrepid, Alex hosted a dinner for Ambassador Lux and the other Luminari leaders. Despite their different biology, the ship's kitchen had created foods that both species could enjoy. "We have been searching the stars for other intelligent life for over 500 years, Lux said through the now advanced translator. "We had almost given up hope." "So had we," Alex replied. "It's strange to think that it took a disaster for us to find each other." Lux's skin glowed with patterns that the translator identified as thoughtful agreement. "When we sent out our distress call, we had little hope of rescue. Our history taught us that survival comes from strength and self-reliance." "And what has it taught you now?" asked Admiral Kelly, who had joined them from the Unity. "That sometimes salvation comes from strangers," Lux answered. "Your people had no obligation to risk everything for beings you had never met. And yet you did." Without hesitation, 3 months later the fleet arrived at New Horizon. The colony had a population of just under 2 million humans, but they had prepared temporary habitats for the Luminari refugees across their southern continent. As the first Luminari ships entered orbit, the colonists sent up a display of fireworks as a welcome. 6 months after the rescue, representatives from Earth arrived to formalize relations with the Luminari. In a ceremony broadcast to both species, they signed the first treaty between humans and an alien civilization. The document began with words that would eventually be inscribed on monuments throughout human and Luminari settlements. When faced with the extinction of strangers, humanity answered not with fear, but with conviction. Not with hesitation, but with speed. Not with calculation of gain, but with determination to preserve life, whatever its form. 1 year after the rescue, the Luminari found a suitable uninhabited planet in a stable star system near human space. They named it Respondere, from the human Latin word meaning to answer, in honor of the species that came when called. On the day the first Luminari settlement ships landed on Respondere, Commander Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the ceremony via video link. Next to him stood Lisa, Daniel, and the other officers who had been with him when they first detected the alien signal 2 years earlier. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Lisa asked. Alex shook his head. "Never, but I'm glad it did." On the screen, Ambassador Lux placed a crystal monument at the landing site. Inside the crystal was a recording of the original distress signal, and next to it, the first human response. As more species were discovered in the following decades, they learned about humans first through Luminari stories, tales of beings who crossed vast distances to save strangers, simply because they heard a call for help. Human history had many dark chapters of war, conquest, and cruelty. But in that moment of crisis, when an alien civilization faced extinction, humanity had shown its better nature. They had answered the call not for profit or glory, but because they heard someone in trouble and couldn't ignore it. In the years that followed, when asked why humans had risked so much for aliens they had never met, most gave the same simple answer. Because that's what humans do. The stars looked different from Saturn's orbit. Commander Alan Pierce stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel, vigilant, his eyes fixed on the distant blue dot he called home. 15 years in space had changed him, hardened him since the resource wars took everything he loved. Now protecting Earth was all that mattered. "Commander, we're picking up something unusual," said Lieutenant Frank Wilson over the comm. "Unknown energy signature at the edge of the system." Pierce straightened his uniform. "Classification?" "Nothing in our database, sir. It's massive." Pierce felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had explored much of the solar system in the decades since achieving reliable space travel, but they had never encountered evidence of intelligent alien life. Until now. "Alert Earth Command. I'm on my way." Captain Susan Miller watched the massive alien vessel approach through Jupiter's orbit with calculated calm. As commander of the EDF flagship Defiance, she had trained for this moment her entire career, though few believed it would ever come. "All weapon systems ready, Captain. reported her tactical officer. Hold position, Miller ordered. Let's see what they want before we start shooting. The alien ship dwarfed the Defiance by at least 20 times. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent material unknown to human science, and strange energy patterns pulsed along its surface. The communications officer's console lit up. Captain, we're receiving a transmission. They're speaking English. Miller raised an eyebrow. Put it through. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged vertically on its face. Its mouth didn't move, but words filled the bridge nonetheless. I am Ambassador Zorvek of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been discovered and catalogued. We require your immediate surrender and integration. Resistance is unnecessary and harmful to both our peoples. Miller kept her expression neutral. This is Captain Susan Miller of Earth. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization, but surrender is not on the table. I suggest a diplomatic meeting to discuss mutual recognition. The alien's upper eyes narrowed. Primitive species do not dictate terms to the hegemony. However, we will allow a brief meeting to explain the integration process. A delegation may board our vessel. With respect, Ambassador, Miller interrupted. We'll meet on neutral ground. We have a station in orbit around Europa. I invite you to send representatives there in 12 hours. A long silence followed. Acceptable, Zorvek finally responded, though displeasure rippled through its telepathic voice. After the transmission ended, Miller turned to her executive officer. They expected us to roll over immediately. Contact Earth Command. We need Dr. Wright. The United Nations Emergency Council chamber buzzed with tension. Representatives from all major nations sat in stunned silence as President Gregory Summers addressed them from the central podium. Ladies and gentlemen, after centuries of speculation, we have confirmation of intelligent extraterrestrial life, he said, his deep voice steady despite the historic gravity of his words. They call themselves the Galactic Hegemony, and they've demanded our surrender. Murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. I have appointed Dr. Olivia Wright, our foremost xenolinguist, to lead our diplomatic team, Summers continued. Captain Miller has arranged a meeting. In the meantime, I have ordered our defense forces to full alert status. Dr. Wright rose from her seat. At 53, she had dedicated her life to studying potential alien communication methods. Now her theoretical work would face its ultimate test. Mr. President, we should approach this meeting with an open mind, but also caution, she said. Their immediate demand for surrender suggests a history of conquering other species. We need to learn more about this hegemony before committing to any action. President Summers nodded. Your team departs for Europa in 3 hours, Doctor. Find out what we're dealing with. The Europa diplomatic station floated serenely against the backdrop of Jupiter's massive form. Inside the main conference room, Dr. Wright and her team waited as the airlock cycled, admitting the alien delegation. Ambassador Zorvek entered first, followed by 4 other aliens of different species. One moved on 6 tentacle-like appendages while another floated slightly above the ground. Guards from both sides lined the walls, weapons visible but lowered. Welcome to Europa Station, Dr. Wright said, rising from her seat. I am Dr. Olivia Wright, Chief Diplomat for Earth. Zorvek inclined his head slightly. Your accommodations are adequate. We will proceed directly to integration protocols. Before we discuss that, Wright replied carefully, we'd like to learn more about the Galactic Hegemony. How many species are members? What is the nature of this integration you propose? The ambassador's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The hegemony includes 24 spacefaring species under the guidance of the Thraxi, my people. Integration means different things for different species based on their development level. One of the other aliens stepped forward, a reptilian being with gleaming scales. Your species has achieved interplanetary travel but lacks true faster-than-light capability. This places you in Category 3, Protected Development. Actually, Dr. Wright said with a small smile, we achieved FTL travel 15 years ago. The revelation sent visible shock through the alien delegation. They exchanged glances before the ambassador regained composure. Impossible, Zorvek stated. Our scans detected no evidence of quantum displacement technology. Lieutenant Jack Morgan, standing against the wall with the other security personnel, caught a subtle change in one alien's posture. While the delegates argued about human technological capabilities, he quietly activated his wrist computer and initiated a scan. What he found sent alarm bells ringing. So you see, Dr. Wright was saying, we qualify for at least Category 2 status by your own metrics. This changes nothing, Zorvek replied coldly. All new species must surrender their military assets as a show of peaceful intent. Your vessels will be decommissioned and your weapons collected. Dr. Wright's expression hardened. That's not acceptable. Earth and her colonies will maintain independent defense capabilities. Then the discussion is over. The ambassador rose. You have 14 planetary rotations to reconsider before we begin the standard pacification process. After the aliens departed, Lieutenant Morgan approached Dr. Wright and Captain Miller, who had observed the meeting silently. They were scanning our defenses during the entire meeting, he reported quietly. Mapping our fleet positions, weapons, capabilities, even our power grid. This wasn't a diplomatic mission, it was reconnaissance. Miller's jaw tightened. I suspected as much. We need to report to President Summers immediately. The Oval Office felt smaller than usual as President Summers reviewed the report. Commander Pierce had been recalled from Saturn to join Captain Miller, Dr. Wright, and Lieutenant Morgan for this critical briefing. They've positioned 5 large vessels at the edge of our system, Miller explained, pointing to the holographic display. Based on energy readings, they're warships, not diplomatic craft. Dr. Wright, the president prompted. The hegemony isn't interested in peaceful coexistence, she said grimly. From what I could gather, they expand by absorbing or subjugating other species. Species that resist are pacified, though they carefully avoided explaining what that means. Lieutenant Morgan added, their technology is advanced but not incomprehensibly so. We detected similarities to our quantum shielding, though their energy weapons appear more sophisticated. And their demands? Summers asked. Complete surrender of all military assets, Miller replied. Earth would become a protected world, under their control. Commander Pierce, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Mr. President, the Vigilant detected unusual interest in our outer colonies, especially the research station on Titan. They may know about Project Singularity. The President's face darkened. Then they know more than they should. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument in the distance. Doctor, what do you recommend? We need more information about the hegemony, Wright answered. Their reaction to our FTL capabilities suggests they're hiding something. I believe they've encountered humans before. Summers turned back to face them. Captain Miller, deploy the fleet according to Defense Plan Echo. Commander Pierce, return to the Vigilant and prepare to activate the Prometheus Protocol if necessary. Lieutenant Morgan, I want everything we can learn about their communication systems. And the ultimatum, sir? Miller asked. The President's expression was resolute. Send this message to Ambassador Zorvek. Earth rejects the hegemony's terms. We are open to establishing diplomatic relations between equals, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. As they filed out of the office, Dr. Wright caught up with Commander Pierce. Alan, there's something else. When I mentioned human physiological capabilities, one of the aliens, the floating one, had a strong emotional reaction. I think they're afraid of us. Pierce considered this. Why would an advanced galactic empire fear humans? I don't know, Wright replied, but I intend to find out. In the darkness of space, beyond Neptune's orbit, the hegemony vessels began to move. The Thraxi commander watched the holographic representation of the solar system, focusing on the tiny blue planet. The underground command center beneath Denver hummed with activity. President Summers stood before a 3-dimensional map of the solar system, watching as red dots representing hegemony vessels moved slowly inward from the outer planets. Activate the Prometheus Protocol, he ordered. General Paul Harris, Joint Chiefs Chairman, entered a series of codes into his secure tablet. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations began to power up. What appeared to be ordinary asteroids split open to reveal missile platforms. Mining stations transformed into defense outposts. Civilian ships shed their outer hulls, revealing military-grade weapon systems beneath. "All units reporting ready, Mr. President," said General Harris. "The hegemony doesn't know what they're walking into." "Let's hope it's enough," Summers replied. "Where's Dr. Wright?" "Still working on those alien records we captured. Says she's found something important." Dr. Olivia Wright hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the holographic symbols floating before her. The alien language was complex, but patterns were emerging. "There," she muttered, highlighting a recurring symbol cluster. "Computer, cross-reference with known root languages." Her assistant, Dr. Sam Kelly, passed her a cup of coffee. "Any progress?" Wright nodded excitedly. "These records mention something called Terrans. The linguistic context suggests it's us, humans, but the reference dates are wrong. According to this, the hegemony encountered Terrans over 10,000 years ago." Kelly frowned. "That's impossible. Human civilization wasn't capable of space travel then." "Exactly." Wright pulled up another section of text. "And look at this. It describes the Terrans as exceptionally dangerous and to be avoided at all costs. There's a quarantine order for our entire solar system dated from that period." "So they've been avoiding us deliberately?" "Until now." Wright's eyes gleamed with the thrill of discovery. "The quarantine order was lifted just 50 years ago. They've been watching us since then, waiting to see what we'd do." "But why come now?" "I think," Wright said slowly, "they're afraid of what we might become if left alone any longer." Lieutenant Jack Morgan led his team through the maintenance shafts of the communications relay station orbiting Venus. The station had been built with secret capabilities that were now being put to use. "Palmer, you're on lookout," he whispered. "Chen, with me." The two officers crawled through the narrow passage until they reached a hidden panel. Morgan entered a sequence of codes revealing advanced equipment that didn't appear in any official blueprint. "Activating SIGINT Package Alpha," he said into his secure comm. "Beginning hegemony network infiltration." Chen connected their equipment to the main communications array. "Sir, their encryption is unlike anything I've seen before." "That's why we brought this." Morgan removed a small device from his pocket, a quantum decryption module developed from reverse-engineered alien technology found in the Kuiper Belt years earlier. As the device worked, strange symbols began appearing on their screens. "Are you seeing this?" Chen whispered. Morgan nodded slowly. "They're mobilizing a lot more ships than we thought. This isn't just about Earth. They're calling it a containment operation." "Containment? Of what?" "Us, and whatever they think we might become." Captain Susan Miller walked through the corridors of the Defiance, inspecting last-minute preparations. The ship had been retrofitted with experimental shield technology based on theories developed by Earth's best scientists. Her executive officer, Commander Diane Foster, fell into step beside her. "Mars defense grid is online. Europa and Titan have activated their planetary shields." "What about the singularity device?" Miller asked quietly. Foster lowered her voice. "Final calibrations complete. Dr. Harrison says it's as ready as it will ever be. But Captain, the simulations show possible collateral damage to our own forces if used within the inner system." Miller nodded grimly. "It's a last resort. Status of the stealth fleet? Operation Hydra is green. All ships in position and running silent." They entered the bridge where a junior officer rushed up to them. "Captain, we've discovered something in the Kuiper Belt. A derelict ship of unknown origin." Miller's eyes widened. "Show me." The main screen displayed a massive vessel, at least 3 kilometers long, partially embedded in a large icy body. It was clearly ancient, its hull pitted and damaged by millennia of exposure. "Initial dating puts it at approximately 12,000 years old," the science officer reported. And Captain, it's not hegemony design, but there are human remains aboard. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Get Commander Pierce out there immediately, Miller ordered, and informed Dr. Wright. This changes everything. Commander Alan Pierce guided the Vigilant carefully through the debris field surrounding the ancient vessel. His team had spent hours preparing for this mission, gathering specialized equipment for exploring the derelict. Approaching docking. Position, reported his pilot, Lieutenant Kira Rodriguez. Structural integrity of the target vessel is minimal. We'll need to be careful. Pierce nodded. Maintain position. Expedition team. Suit up. 20 minutes later, Pierce led 5 officers through the airlock and into the ancient ship. Their helmet lights cut through darkness undisturbed for thousands of years. Atmosphere reading 0, said Lieutenant Rodriguez. Temperature minus 200 Celsius. They moved slowly through corridors designed for beings much like themselves. Pierce felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Sir," called one of his team, "you need to see this." In what appeared to be a control room, they found them. The preserved bodies of humans in strange uniforms frozen in their final moments. "How is this possible?" whispered Rodriguez. "Human spaceflight 12,000 years ago?" Pierce examined the control panels, which displayed symbols similar to ancient Earth languages. "We need to download whatever data remains in these systems." As his team worked, Pierce explored deeper into the vessel. In a large chamber, he discovered what appeared to be a memorial wall covered in images and text. Though he couldn't read the ancient script, one image stood out, a depiction of human warriors standing victorious over cowering aliens that looked exactly like the Thraxi. "Commander," his communications officer called over the radio. "We're receiving an encrypted transmission from Earth. Dr. Wright needs to speak with you urgently." In the White House Situation Room, President Summers listened as Dr. Wright and Commander Pierce delivered their findings via secure communication. "The ship is definitively of human origin," Pierce reported. "Based on the technology and preserved records we've recovered, it appears to be from an advanced human civilization that existed before recorded history. My analysis of hegemony records supports this," added Dr. Wright. "They refer to a devastating war with Terrans that nearly destroyed their early empire. The Thraxi leadership instituted a quarantine of our solar system afterward, declaring it forbidden space. They're afraid of us," Summers realized. "They remember what humans were capable of in the past." "There's more," Pierce continued. "We found evidence that this ancient human civilization had colonies throughout nearby star systems. The hegemony didn't just fight us here. They fought a human interstellar empire. And they lost," Wright concluded, "which explains their reaction to discovering we've developed FTL technology again. They're afraid history will repeat itself." The president turned to General Harris. "How soon can the hegemony fleet reach Earth?" "At their current speed, 3 days." Summers nodded decisively. "Then we have 3 days to prepare. Captain Miller, is Operation Hydra ready?" Miller's voice came through the speaker. "Yes, Mr. President. Our stealth ships are in position throughout the system. Dr. Wright, I want you to continue translating those ancient records. Find anything that might give us an advantage. Commander Pierce, get back to Earth with whatever you recovered from that ship." As the meeting concluded, Lieutenant Morgan entered with a data tablet. "Mr. President, we've intercepted hegemony communications. They're not just sending a fleet. They're bringing a weapon called the World Breaker." A heavy silence fell over the room. "They intend to make an example of us," Summers said quietly, "to ensure no other species ever resist them again." "Sir," Morgan added, "there's something else. Their communications show they're terrified of humans. They call us the Awakening Nightmare." President Summers stood straighter, a determined look crossing his face. "Then let's show them why they should be afraid. It's time to remind the galaxy why their ancestors ran from ours." The vast emptiness between Neptune and Uranus suddenly filled with light as the hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 50 warships led by the massive dreadnought Inevitable Conquest formed a battle line aimed directly at Earth aboard the flagship Grand Admiral Zilnar, Supreme Commander of the Hegemony Forces, studied the tactical display. The blue-skinned Thraxy's four eyes narrowed as he observed the seemingly sparse human defenses. Their military presence is minimal, reported his sensor officer. We detect only 20 vessels of war capability. Do not underestimate them, Zilnar warned. Our ancestors made that mistake. Launch scout vessels ahead of the main fleet. Compliance, Admiral. The officer transmitted the orders. Scout group launching now. Zilnar turned to Ambassador Zorvek, who stood stiffly at his side. You are wrong about them being primitive. They have rediscovered faster-than-light travel. An anomaly, Zorvek insisted. They remain disorganized and weak. Their main colony on Mars has minimal defenses. We shall see, the Admiral replied, unconvinced. Begin the advance. Hegemony fleet has crossed Neptune's orbit, announced the tactical officer on the bridge of the Defiance. Approximately 50 vessels, including one super heavy class. Captain Susan Miller nodded calmly. Right on schedule. All stations, battle positions. Activate communication blackout protocols. Throughout the solar system, human vessels went silent, communicating only through tight beam quantum channels undetectable by hegemony sensors. Operation Hydra status? Miller asked. Commander Foster checked her secure terminal. All units in position and awaiting your command. Miller took a deep breath. The hegemony expects us to defend Earth directly. They don't know about our outer system capabilities. She opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Captain Miller. Execute Operation Hydra, Phase 1. The hegemony scout vessels pushed forward confidently, scanning for human defenses. Without warning, space around them seemed to ripple as hundreds of previously invisible human ships deactivated their stealth systems and opened fire. Aboard the lead scout, the Thraxy commander barely had time to signal a warning before energy. Beams tore through his ship's hull. Back on the inevitable conquest, Grand Admiral Zilnar watched in shock as his entire scout fleet vanished from sensors. What happened? He demanded. Unknown, Admiral. His tactical officer replied, voice rising in panic. We've lost all contact with the scout group. Before Zilnar could respond, new contacts appeared on his displays, hundreds of them surrounding his fleet from all directions. Impossible, whispered Zorvek. Our intelligence indicated they had only 40 warships total. Zilnar slammed his fist on the command console. Battle formations. All ships, raise shields and prepare for combat. But the humans struck first. From hiding places inside hollow asteroids disguised as mining equipment, and emerging from the shadows of Jupiter's moons, Earth's stealth fleet launched a coordinated attack that caught the hegemony completely by surprise. Jupiter Squadron, execute solar flare maneuver, ordered Captain Miller, watching as the battle unfolded on her tactical display. Human ships positioned near Jupiter activated powerful electromagnetic pulse generators. The massive planet's already intense magnetic field amplified the effect, creating a wave of energy that washed over the right flank of the hegemony fleet. Alien shields flickered and failed as the carefully calibrated pulse disrupted their energy systems. Direct hit, reported Commander Foster. 30% of enemy vessels experiencing shield failure. Saturn Squadron, commence attack run, Miller commanded. From the opposite direction, a second human battle group emerged from Saturn's rings, launching missiles with shaped nuclear warheads designed to focus their explosive force in a single direction. The hegemony ships caught between two attacking forces suffered heavy damage, but they weren't defenseless. Energy beams lashed out from alien vessels, slicing through several human ships. Miller gripped her chair as damage reports flooded in. We've lost the cruiser Determination and 3 destroyers. Space Station Liberty Point is under heavy attack. Enemy deploying flanking force toward Mars, Foster added urgently. Miller studied the tactical situation. The hegemony was adapting quickly, regrouping their forces into a defensive formation. They're faster learners than we expected, she noted. Signal Lieutenant Morgan. It's time for Phase 2. Lieutenant Jack Morgan led his boarding team through the airlock of the disabled hegemony vessel. Wearing advanced combat suits, the 12 soldiers moved with practiced precision through the alien corridors. Remember, Non-lethal tactics where possible, Morgan ordered. We need prisoners and data. The first aliens they encountered were maintenance, workers, not soldiers. The humans quickly subdued them with stun weapons developed specifically for this mission. Control room should be ahead, said Sergeant Patricia Reyes, checking the ship schematics they'd obtained from intelligence sources. Morgan nodded. Alpha team, with me. Beta team, secure the engineering section. They encountered heavier resistance as they approached the bridge. Alien security forces fired energy weapons that scorched the walls around them. Shield wall, Morgan commanded. 3 soldiers stepped forward, activating portable energy shields that formed a protective barrier. Behind this cover, Morgan and his team returned fire with electromagnetic pulse weapons that disrupted the aliens' nervous systems without killing them. After a brief but intense firefight, they reached the control room. Inside, the alien commander attempted to activate a self-destruct sequence. Morgan fired his weapon without hesitation, stunning the commander before he could complete the sequence. Secure the controls. Download everything. Sergeant Reyes connected, a quantum computer to the alien systems. Beginning data extraction. Sir, called one of his team, you need to see this. On a secondary display, Morgan saw images of a massive weapon, a huge cylinder bristling with energy projectors and gravity manipulators. That's the World Breaker, he said grimly. Now we know what it looks like. How long until it arrives? Reyes studied the information scrolling across her screen. According to their battle plans, it's 6 hours behind the main fleet. We need to warn Earth. Morgan opened his comm channel, but only static came through. Comms are being jammed. We need to get this data back immediately. A violent explosion shook the ship. Sir, our extraction point is gone, reported another soldier. Hegemony forces are attempting to recapture the vessel. Morgan thought quickly. Plan B. We take this ship. On Earth, President Summers watched the space battle unfold with Commander Pierce and Dr. Wright at his side. Liberty Point Station has fallen, reported General Harris. Casualties are high. Summers closed his eyes briefly. Evacuate all remaining personnel. Commander Pierce studied the tactical display. The hegemony's adapting to our tactics faster than expected. They're pushing toward Mars now. Their target is the civilian colony, Dr. Wright realized. They're following their standard conquest protocol. Attack the most vulnerable targets to force a surrender. Not if we stop them first, Pierce responded. Mr. President, I recommend deploying the singularity weapon. Summers hesitated. The experimental device, reverse-engineered from ancient human technology found in the derelict ship, was untested in actual combat. The simulations suggested it could create a localized gravity well powerful enough to crush enemy vessels, but with unpredictable side effects. The civilian colony on Europa is reporting incoming hegemony forces, General Harris. Interrupted. They've begun using biological weapons specifically designed for human physiology. That decided it. Authorize singularity deployment, Summers ordered. Target the hegemony force approaching Europa. Captain Miller received the authorization. Code with mixed feelings. The singularity device represented humanity's most advanced weapon, but also its most dangerous. Prepare the singularity, she ordered. Target coordinates locked on the hegemony battle group near Europa. Commander Foster entered the final activation sequence. Device ready, Captain. Miller took a deep breath. Fire. From the underbelly of the Defiance, a small projectile launched toward the enemy fleet. It looked insignificant, a sphere barely 2 meters in diameter. The hegemony ships didn't even attempt to intercept it. The sphere detonated between 3 alien warships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to warp. A sphere of distorted light formed, growing rapidly. The nearest hegemony ship was pulled toward it, its hull crumpling under impossible gravitational forces. 2 more vessels were caught in the effect, their structures failing catastrophically as they were compressed to a fraction of their original size. Then, as suddenly as it began, the effect collapsed in on itself and vanished, leaving nothing but debris where 7 hegemony warships had been. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Grand Admiral Silnar watched in horror. "What was that weapon?" he demanded. No one answered. Even Ambassador Zorvek stood speechless. "Send a message to High Command," Silnar finally ordered. "The humans have weapons of mass destruction beyond our current understanding. Request immediate reinforcement in the World Breaker." As his communications officer complied, Silnar stared at the tactical display showing the devastation caused by the human weapon.